filed a motion in the Southern District of Florida to unseal the search warrant, meaning we'll be able to see what they were after on Monday.
Personally, as a prosecutor for 18 years, signed thousands of subpoenas. Thousands. Many times, people don't comply. So what do? You either issue a new subpoena or you do a motion to compel. Why wasn't that done in this case? The Trump people were working well with them. Why wasn't that done? That's a question for Merrick Garland. Number two for Merrick Garland, the warrant. Think about the warrant. If you're going to issue a warrant, the reason has to be, I'm worried they're going to destroy evidence. Well, what's suspect about that? We've now learned that warrant was signed on Friday, but not executed until Monday. So why get the warrant? That doesn't even make sense. Number three, I have personally been involved in many search warrants, authorizing them, the execution of the search warrants, and they came in there with guns blazing, like you said. For documents, you know what you do? You get a couple agents, you go up, you show the warrant at Mar-a-Lago. They knew the president wasn't there. They knew it was a skeleton crew at Mar-a-Lago. You go in, you go to the safe, you go to the office, you get the documents you need. Done. Yet what did they do? They did an execution on land, on sea, by air. They had agents in the water, agents in the air. You may have only seen 30 to 40 there on the ground, but there were hundreds of agents that had to have been weaponized to pull the assault off at Mar-a-Lago that day and that night. Merrick Garland, that's where tax dollars are going, to that. Did you see the massive trucks out there, Sean, lined around? You know why they did that? It was the optics. They thought Donald Trump would look like a common criminal, but it backfired on them. And the American people have seen what they've done, and they are disgusted by this. And he's got a lot more explaining to do.
And you know, look at this. Look what they did to Peter Navarro. Look at what they did to Manafort. Look at what they did to Roger Stone, who'll join us tonight, Greg. This is now their tactic. They want to harass, intimidate, and send a message to everyone else. Don't mess with us. We're all powerful, almighty. And the double standard, the dual system of justice couldn't be any more clear than it is now.
Yeah, I don't question the integrity of the DOJ and the FBI. I criticize the utter lack of integrity and rectitude of Merrick Garland and Christopher Wray. Merrick Garland today unwittingly, stupidly undermined his own argument when he said, our standard practice is to use the least intrusive method. That's called a subpoena. And the FBI did that 2 months ago. They were counting on Donald Trump challenging it so that they would then be poised for a raid. But Trump capitulated. He gave them everything they wanted. So they probably sat back at the DOJ and said, now what are we going to do? Well, they should have issued another subpoena if they wanted more documents. I suspect all of that is left out of the affidavit in support of the FBI warrant to search the premises. And I think they probably snookered this magistrate, who, by the way, is not a regular federal district court judge. He's appointed by the district court to do the sort of grunt work. He doesn't have the experience. A real judge would have probably said, wait a minute.
Oh, wait a minute. He recused himself from a case with Hillary Clinton. Yeah, why didn't he recuse himself here?
Well,
these are dangerous times.
His social media posts were virulently anti-Trump. Under the law, he's required to recuse himself. But a good judge would have said, wait a minute, why aren't you using a subpoena here? There are a lot of questions about this magistrate himself.
All right. Thank you, Pam Bondi. We appreciate it. Greg Jarrett, thank you. Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey.
The Department of Justice is reportedly investigating the actions of former President Donald Trump after the 2020 election. This as its criminal probe deepens into the efforts to overturn the 2020 election. The Washington Post reports that the DOJ is looking at meetings Trump had in December 2020 and January 2021. No former U.S. president has been indicted. And in an interview with NBC's Lester Holt, Attorney General Merrick Garland again said an indictment for Trump was not off the table.
Look, we pursue justice without fear or favor. We intend to hold anyone who was criminally responsible for events surrounding January 6th, for any attempt to interfere with the lawful transfer of power from one administration to another accountable. That's what we do.
About any ongoing investigation.
You come here and you tell us you follow the facts and the law, but you can't even follow a laptop that you guys have had for 3 years.
We follow the facts and the law, and we speak in open court about our cases.
But you aren't speaking about this, but you know who is speaking about it? The whistleblowers from the FBI who've gone to Senator Grassley and said that you guys purposefully take any information that is derogatory about Hunter Biden and you go and rat hole it so that you never have to speak about it in any circumstance. But the good news is you're not the only ones with that laptop. So Patrick Ho was convicted of bribing government officials in Africa, and he gave $1 million to Hunter Biden. Are you familiar with that?
I'm not going to speak about any ongoing.
People have a right to be secure in their homes, free from false warrants, unreasonable searches, and the use of unjustifiable and excessive force by the police. Breonna Taylor should have awakened in her home as usual on the morning of March 13th, 2020.
Former United States Attorney. Barb, my friend, thank you so much for being here. This is just the first in the steps towards justice for Breonna Taylor, but I want people to really understand what's the significance of these indictments and the DOJ's investigation to ultimately reach this point.
Well, Katie, I think this is one of those cases that everybody felt like such a grave injustice. How can it be that a woman is asleep in her home, completely innocent, and the police can bust down her door and shoot her dead? The challenge, of course, is that the law looks at the incident from the perspective of a reasonable officer on the scene. And so once an officer is lawfully in the apartment and someone is firing upon them, then they do have the ability to return fire for self-defense. But what the Justice Department has done here is actually really quite clever, is they've gone back a step. They've gone back to the obtaining of this warrant in the first place, because it turns out they weren't lawfully there when they fired those shots. And so by going back and finding that they had falsified the affidavit to get that no-knock warrant based on information about a former boyfriend selling drugs out of that location, that's where the crack in the fault line in this case was, and that's what they have focused on in these charges. It's really a very clever way of getting to criminal conduct that had been overlooked, I think.
Shortly in more detail from the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York, these charges are part of a years-long investigation of criminal drug trafficking organizations and their infiltration of the Honduran government. So far, this investigation has led to the conviction of numerous Honduran drug traffickers who are responsible for the importation of over 500,000 kilograms of cocaine into the United States, as well as dozens of foreign murders. Threatens septic infection or hemorrhage, or is suffering from severe preeclampsia. When a hospital determines that an abortion is the medical treatment necessary to stabilize a patient's emergency medical condition, it is required by federal law to provide that treatment. As detailed in our complaint, Idaho's law would make it a criminal offense for doctors to provide the emergency medical treatment that federal law requires. Although the Idaho law provides an exception to prevent the death of a pregnant woman, it includes no exception for cases in which the abortion is necessary to prevent serious jeopardy to the woman's health. Moreover, it would subject doctors to arrest and criminal prosecution even if they performed an abortion to save a woman's life, and it would then place the burden on the doctors to prove that they are not criminally liable. The United States therefore seeks a declaratory judgment that Idaho's law violates the Supremacy Clause of the United States Constitution and is preempted by federal law to the extent it is in conflict with EMTALA. The United States also seeks an injunction prohibiting Idaho from enforcing its law against healthcare providers who provide the emergency treatment required by EMTALA.
Addressing excessive restrictions on fundamental rights. From January 2017 to the present, the Department of Justice has charged more than 90 defendants for committing crimes motivated by hate.
Welcome to the Department of Justice's Summit on Combating Human Trafficking.
The Department of Justice has also been active in Indian country.
I've always been mindful that it's the responsibility of the Attorney General to serve all the people of the United States in every state and in every community.
A presidential task force called Operation Lady Justice was announced and was empowered to review Indian country cold cases, strengthen law enforcement protocols, and work with tribes to improve investigations, information sharing, and a more seamless response to missing persons investigations. Grants totaling $100